Hello, my name is Edward James Tagg, and today I'm giving a talk called Feeling Unseen. I'm doing that on the day that I normally talk about psychology or therapy or healing or inner child. So, a lot of people feel that they are unseen, and I think it's a really, really good topic to address. So, that's why I'm doing it. So, I think for me it has a lot to do with various parenting styles that evolve through the millennia or through the ages and how children are reared. And I think we've seen that really, really clearly, particularly with baby boomers, with authoritarian style parenting, that old saying, children are seen but not heard. But a lot of the time they didn't feel seen themselves. So if you're struggling with feeling unseen, it could have a lot to do with how you were parented. Today, we have a different style of parenting. You know, you've got millennials that are on TikTok doing dancing and all sorts of things, and it appears that they feel very much seen. But even that can be brought into question because sometimes when you've got so much social media and people at the opposite of that polarity, and they seem to be demonstrating that they're seen a lot. I'll say hello to Emma and Teresa and everybody who joins in, and this goes on YouTube, so hit those bell notifications and icons if you want to. So anyway, you could say that they're excessively presenting themselves in the public image on social media because they want to be seen, and that could reflect psychologically at an inner level that they still don't feel seen. So I think it's very, very interesting to look at the way that parenting styles have changed over the years and how people present themselves with certain needy behaviors or the way that they present themselves, and you've got to draw conclusions or diagnose, do they feel seen or not? And sometimes the only way you've actually got to ask them. So definitely, if you had authoritarian upbringing, if you're a baby boomer, the old saying, seen and not heard, a lot of people have suffered from that, and I've experienced that as well. Now, my father demonstrated to me a lot of love, particularly in my younger years, birthdays and Christmases and lots of attention. So I definitely felt seen when I was young. I think intellectually later on, when I started to clash with my father on certain beliefs, then I felt less seen, and then I had spiritual enlightenment and went through various changes. But I know certainly what it feels like for some people to not feel seen, and I think all of us have experienced it at some time. Okay, so I think a lot of young souls, I mean, if you look at the 5 stages of soul development, you look at the baby souls that are striving for security, and then the young souls, they definitely want recognition. And it seems to be part of our culture of materialism. I think culturally across countries and continents and style that exist in various countries, there's certain levels of seen or unseen being experienced in certain cultures. So those cultures where the children feel seen the most appear to be in the more feminine cultures, the Catholic type of cultures, and even the Middle East. So in the Middle East, and even in kibbutzes, in Israel, I find generally. So the most confident, socially confident people I've met when I've been backpacking and traveling around the world have been Israelis, and then Portuguese, and Spanish, and also definitely in the Philippines, those sort of cultures that are more gentle and got a feminine base. You could say they've almost got a feminine base, maybe not so much Israeli, but definitely there are some cultures where they seem to present more social confidence and they seem to be seen a lot more. So I think with the current parenting styles of today, and with the millennials or the X generation or other generations, they definitely seem to be seen a lot more. So I think it's really, really a good thing. I think generally parenting is improving. There are still problems, but it's improving a lot. And that problem of not feeling seen seems to be more in the past with, with the baby boomers, and not so much in the present. But as an inner child therapist, I'm still helping people all the time who don't feel seen. Someone mentioned it to me recently, so that's why I'm talking about it. So if you're particularly a attention seeker and you're really, really suffering from this, I'm going to be going through all those processes of how you experience and how you find solutions to that, because there are solutions. So if you're really an attention seeker, and that happens a lot, you see it in the youth in their 20s, and people are what they call a try-hard. That's what we used to call them, when they're trying very, very hard to be seen and using a lot of attention seeking. Or maybe they're very competitive in sports, and if they get the touchdown in the football team and everybody cheers, they'll feel really, really good, because then they feel seen. But it's kind of, if someone's in competitive sport and they're trying very hard and they're a try-hard, then it's usually an indication that somewhere on the inside they don't feel seen. So they could be famous. They could be, a famous actor. Like, why did Robin Williams commit suicide? He was one of the most seen in the front of the public eye as a comedian. He was very seen by the public, but on the inside, it's possible that maybe he didn't feel seen. So just think about that. Sometimes the people in the public eye that have the most attention on them, sometimes they can feel not seen. And we've had this court case between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, and I don't want to make a diagnostic into their psyche, because I can't do that on the given information, but it's possible that Amber Heard or Johnny Depp didn't fully feel seen. Now, I got a feeling that Johnny Depp was loved more, like you just heard people cheering when he came out of the court case, and he seemed to have a lot more love from his supporters. But when Amber Heard came out of the court case, she was jeered and almost attacked. And so maybe that was part of her psyche. Maybe she didn't feel seen, and maybe she needed that court case to bring attention to herself. So a lot of people go through this in divorces. So if you've gone through a family divorce, or if you're struggling, let's say you're trying to take someone to court. I won't mention, but I know someone who took someone to court recently. It was quite a while ago, really. So if you go through that experience, I'd turn off notifications so people can't interrupt. If you go through that experience trying to get attention or trying to be seen, there's some indication that in deep within your psyche, maybe you don't feel seen. So just think about that, what you're struggling to achieve. So sometimes we go up with bad relationships with a narcissist, and that's kind of like an emotional lesson that we have to experience, is that often a narcissist is really, really good at the early stages of a relationship. They might bring you flowers and pay you lots of compliments. I saw a really great documentary about the difference between a narcissist, a sociopath, and a psychopath. And I won't go into that now because it's off topic. But, there was a person, I think they classified as a sociopath, and they asked why did they treat them that way, and they were perfect for a whole year. So this woman got into a relationship, I think with a psychopath actually, for a whole year, and she said he was perfect. He brought me flowers, he remembered my anniversary, he paid me lots of compliments, he did everything perfectly, he listened to my feelings, everything. He was just a perfect guy. But then after a year, he stopped being nice, and he was a complete bleep horrible person. And then when they interviewed him, and when he was in prison or whatever, they said, why did you hurt her? And she said, well, I'm a sociopath, I have no feelings, I just have anger and hate inside me, and I just wanted to crush her spirit. So sometimes there are narcissists or sociopaths or whatever, and sometimes they do that to women. It's very, very sad. But anyway, on the receiving end, If you're attention seeking and you're going to a relationship and you've got a very low feeling of self-worth and you just desperately don't feel seen but you want to be seen, sometimes you can fall into these bad relationships with narcissists because they give you promises of seeing you and paying you compliments, and everybody wants to receive roses, everybody wants to be remembered, but that's a really, really bad and a failed test, unfortunately, for people who suffer that. So why would you go through that? Or why would God or the angels or the universe put you through such a really horrendous personal and interpersonal test, and to set you up to fail? Well, why would the universe or God do that to you? And I can feel for you. I know what that feels like. So the reason being is that it comes from the ultimate premise of who you are in God. The ultimate thing is that your soul is made of love. You're connected to God. So that's the ultimate truth. But when we're on planet Earth in this like school of life, we live in a three-dimensional, human mindset of materialism. And just the whole thinking of planet Earth is just skewed against the truth that you are love and you are God. It just teaches you that that you're only valued from your materialistic worth, and so it's conditional love. It's not unconditional love. So when you go through these trials and tribulations with narcissists and bad relationships, you're getting a demonstration and having an experience with everything that you are not. So if you tick off a list on, I recommend you get a piece of paper and you write a list. Say, am I beautiful? And can you tick it? Am I, adorable? Or am I a good person? Or do I have virtues? Am I courageous? Or am I nice? Or am I the sort of person that someone would want to date? And you just put all these boxes. And then you put on the other right hand side and you can say, well, am I a nasty person? Am I a bad listener? Am I not virtuous? Am I unkind, or am I non-empathetic towards animals or suffering? And then you think about that left and right hand column. Well, when you're dating a narcissist or dating someone that doesn't meet your needs, who doesn't see you, you're having an experience with all of that negativity, and you can cross them off. You learn, well, they treated me unkind, but it doesn't mean that I deserve that. It doesn't mean that I'm unkind too. It just means that you had to have an experience to go through that to learn what you're not. And then generally it's an emotional trigger because it's mirroring a reminder of what it was like when you were unseen as a child. So that narcissist or that bad relationship, or it could be a group, you might desperately seek attention from a club, or like you might want to join the council or become a politician and get people to vote for you, and then you want to be seen, and people will vote and make you the mayor or the councillor or at the annual general meeting, and you desperately want to be seen. So when you're having these bad interactions with relationships or parents or families or groups or politicians or anything, you'll really have an experience with everything that you're not, and you can tick that off that list. I'm not unkind. I'm not a bad person. I'm not, a bad listener. I'm not, non-empathetic. And then when you've had that experience, then you can maybe go within and you can ask the deep questions. You can talk to God, or you can pray, or you can contemplate, or go out in nature. And so I strongly recommend that you do this if you're struggling with not being seen, and you've been a try-hard, and you've been trying and trying and trying and trying and racking your brains and saying, why do people treat me bad? Why do I always feel unworthy? Am I a bad person? Well, yes or no. Maybe I've decided I'm not a bad person. That person that judged me, that narcissist, I think what they said about me was wrong. I'm not unkind. I am a good listener. So just think hard about that and try and do a personal inventory. And then I recommend spend 2 or 3 days out in the wilderness and just talk to the clouds or trees or whatever, and just say, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel so unworthy? Why do I feel unseen? Why is it the more I spend time in groups or with people and I try so hard to get their attention, why do I just get slapped across the face and slam dunked so hard, and I end up feeling worse when all I wanted was just for people to see me and love me and show me the right kind of attention? And that's because God or the universe, the angels, they're trying to teach you, is because you're not seeing it in yourself. So it has to start in here. And, well, how do you achieve that? Well, that sounds like the impossible solution. How do you do that? If you've never learned, if you've never had the right parenting, if you've never been able to see yourself in the right way, then how can you unlearn bad habits and start doing something differently? And that's really, really hard. That's where contemplation and meditation or prayer or being on a quest. And there's a beautiful, really, really beautiful story. And children's stories are full of them. All these legends and stories like the never-ending story where Atreyu and also that little boy, he had to be asked how to get a name. Like, what is my name? And he went on this quest to try and find himself. So you might have to go on a deep personal quest, and you won't find yourself in groups. You won't find yourself struggling to be a politician. You won't find yourself going to an annual general meeting and piping up and saying, I want to be heard. And you won't find it in bad relationships. You only find it in isolation. So if you want to be seen, I recommend that you stop trying. I know we all want love and we all deserve love. That's true. Like, why is the universe or the planet so set up against me? Like, surely I deserve love. And that's the problem right there. Just think about that idea, I deserve love. No, well, that's not an accurate statement. The real truth is that I am love. If you agree that the creation of the universe, that you were a little blip or a little part of God's energy, then surely you're part of God, so you are love. So that when you make that statement, I deserve love, well, it's coming from a disbelief. It's coming from, well, surely do I, or don't I, or why am I struggling with this? It's because deep inside you don't feel it. It's just your conditioning. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just your upbringing and being on planet Earth. So the way you fix that is you've got to go on an interpersonal or a quest inside yourself, and you've got to spend a lot of time seeking, and you've got to strip away all the aspects of status and society and all those definitions your role. Often, people on planet Earth, they just play a role. I saw a really sad TED podcast the other day. And it was a woman, she was a politician, or she was talking, and she was advising young girls, and she was just saying, when I grew up, I was taught that I was nothing. I was just what they called a wet, warm hole. And he said, either you're a wet, warm hole, or you're a woman. And I thought about that, and I thought, well, that's quite a negative view of women, obviously. But she just said that if you traded your body just for love and attention and you had sex too young, that you were a wet, warm hole. And I suppose some women might feel like that. And so you've got to strip away that role, that status, that identity. Am I only beautiful because of my long blonde hair? And they say the most popular hair dye that sells so really, really well is blonde. It's not black, it's blonde. A lot of women want to be blonde and they want to be seen. So it's a real problem in society, and our society is conditioned to not see people and to make people feel unworthy. It's very conditional. That if you're blonde and you're tall and you've got chest implants, and if you drive around a Ferrari, if you're a man, if you've got status, and I've had a relationship with a woman really, really recently, and she judged me for being a particular way because I'm a spiritual teacher, and she well, I won't go into that because it's too personal, but it was around these levels of status, and certain people in society that are at a certain level of their development. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that people at a certain level of development, they will attribute value. They will attribute value in you conditionally by your worth. And how do you attribute worth? How do you do that? Is it owning a Ferrari? Is it money? Is it status? Or is it being kind? Is it being a good person? Or is it being fake? Is it being on social media and doing TikTok dances? I mean, I love TikTok dances. They're a lot of fun and it's very entertaining. So don't get me wrong. But it's just the way we measure worth and what we attribute about status in society. And I have no problem with this girlfriend that I had that judged me. I still love her and honor her. I just appreciate that she's had some conditioning, and survival and status is important to her, but we had some differences about how we viewed and measured people. So just think about that, and then go on an inner journey, and then start talking to your inner child. And your inner child will really love you for it. If you start saying, see, that's the interesting thing is this, is that they say that death and taxes are the biggest fears on planet Earth, but they're not. The biggest fear is being unseen, and not being validated. So every inner child, every wounded inner child, or every inner child inside you, their biggest fear is not being seen and also not being validated. So if you, like London is quite a really sad city. I mean, I love London. It's wonderful. Architecture, people, it's exciting. Education, in many, many ways, London's exciting. But it can also be the most loneliest place on the planet. It's just full of busy people who can't see you. They see status and they see their job and they see their importance, and it doesn't matter what career you're doing. I was doing banking, but London can be definitely a city where people very much feel unseen. So think about that. So your inner child's greatest fear is not being seen and not being validated, not being heard. And that's why I'm lucky to say, or happy to say, that with a lot of the younger generation now, with social media and with millennial parenting styles and everything, there's a lot more self-worth. And I see beautiful things happening with, like Britain's Got Talent is really wonderful. Now you've got America's Got Talent, you've got Russia's Got Talent, you've got, The Voice, and so many people are expressing themselves on stage. So many people are, having fun in school campuses and doing drama and performances, and there's TikTok. So it's really, really healthy, and I think it's really, really positive of the way the young are being seen a lot more. But it's still that conditional mindset about value. But it's getting better. It's getting a lot better. So spend time in nature. Spend time communing with your angels. Start to see yourself. Start to reward yourself and listen to your inner child's feelings and dialogue with your inner child. And then stop measuring yourself in terms of your needs and expectations from groups. If you're still triggered by that and you're still desperately seeking, then you've got to spend more inner quality time with your inner child, or with God, or with your angels, or with nature, or with music. The interesting thing is there's a law that like recognizes like. So why do I say that? What does it mean when I say like recognizes like? If you want to be seen, it can be really, really beneficial to study beauty, because I spend a lot of time with art as a woodcarver and as a sculptor, and also related it to music, sacred geometry and beautiful Baroque music like Vivaldi. And the more time that I spent in isolation alone, drawing or wood carving or doing, I did some really amazing sculptures. The first I sculpted a Mary Magdalene, and then I sculpted a really strong Roman horse out of clay, and then I sculpted, the most beautiful thing I ever made was a what do you call them? They got a dished face, an Arabian horse with a mane flying. It was very, very beautiful. And then when I achieved it, I broke down and cried, because I couldn't believe that from me outpoured this beautiful sculpture. And you'll see it on my page if you want to see it. But it was a lot better than I thought I could actually produce. I was surprised by my level of talent from lesser experience. So when you spend time with beauty, you get a glimpse or a mirror, and you start to see the center of your soul. So when I produced this beautiful clay sculpture, I was a bit shocked and surprised, because I saw my outward expression that was a mirror of my inner beauty. And so if you spend a lot more time with art and music, some of the real sacred divine music and art, like say, okay, that sculpture where my finger is right now, or a painting, or music and Baroque music like Vivaldi. There's some really beautiful Vivaldi arias. Also, I can't remember his name. It comes from Farinelli. Farinelli, he was it's too hard to remember. Bruniski, or he had a composer that wrote music for him, and the music's just divine. And I can't remember and quote it, but anyway, if you spend time with beauty and art and music, you'll start to see, and it acts as a mirror, and you start to see inside yourself. So those people that spend time in contemplation, prayer, meditation, nature, and then art and music, they start seeing themselves, and it's a really glorious experience. Your inner child gets the feedback from that, and it's the only way to live your life. Sometimes you'll spend so much time alone in art, beauty, music, nature, and prayer that when you go out into the general public and you go back to those groups, and you go back to your annual general meetings, and you go back to the city council, and you go back to the politicians, and you go back to all those groups, and you see them all trying really hard for attention, and you can feel on the inside that they feel worthless. You'll be shocked, because you spent so much time communing with your inner, and you see all these people that are tryhards. They're trying so hard, and then you see the shock, you see the juxtaposition of the different perception, and it'll take you back. It'll surprise you. I had a friend who was a Zen Buddhist monk from Burma. He was Australian, and he worked as an actor. He worked as at different times. He also worked as a stand-in, or where they don't use their voice. And he was there with a lot of famous actors. And when it came for time for their breaks, and they had a big smorgasbord and tables, it was outdoors, and he'd sit down. I think he saw, not Kevin Costner, it might have been Kevin Costner or Harrison Ford, and he saw one of them, and he said that they just had this blank, empty stare, and he was expecting, he was sitting opposite, a famous actor, someone that he really admired, and he thought he'd find a person, full of self-confidence, and because he was a Buddhist monk, he could sort of psychically feel inside this actor that there was this blank sort of sadness and this melancholy, that they couldn't see themselves, and they hadn't done enough inner work, and he was really surprised. So you might be surprised to just experience that when you do lots of inner work, and then you go back into the world, in inverted commas, and you see all these people trying hard for love and attention, that you'll be quite shocked and surprised, and when you start to see yourself. And then you'll kind of reframe how you view the world, materialism and that three-dimensional, world mindset, and you'll stop needing so much, and you'll stop having expectations, because you're using your measuring stick, and then you're stopping having bad relationships with narcissists, and you'll tick off all those boxes, and you'll learn to understand what you're not, and then what's left over is what you truly are when you're in quiet contemplation, communing with your inner child and validating your own feelings. You'll start to get a glimpse, and you'll start to see yourself. And when you see yourself and get mirrored through art and beauty and music, it'll all become clear. Sometimes the way I talk, I know this is a lecture and a talk, sometimes it's theoretical, but a lot of what I'm talking about is actually mystical and experiential. You can't do it through listening to me. You can only learn by doing. You've got to go through the process I'm discussing, and you've got to experience. You've just got to go on a retreat, commune with your inner child, pray, do some clay sculpture, maybe do some singing lessons, or spend lots of time alone, or spend time in a garden, in prayer, or softness or quietude, and it'll just, you'll lift, your vibration will lift, and you'll start glimpsing your inner child and your pure inner child and the center of your soul. And when you glimpse the center of your soul, you'll be surprised. It'll really shock you. And then when you go back into the world and you see how other people are still using that measuring stick and ticking themselves off on conditional values and materialism, you'll see how juxtaposed and how different it is to the new way of seeing yourself. So feeling unseen is something that we learn, but it's not true, it's not real. The ultimate truth is that we are having a oneness relationship with God as parts of God, and we're all beautiful and we're all seen. But it's a journey, and it takes spade work. You've got to go on the mystical path in isolation before you'll start to see, and then you'll get it. And when you get it, your life will never be the same. There's a really, really beautiful book, and it's actually it's got a movie called The Celestine Prophecy, and it's about a man that well, the movie's really good. It illustrates it really well, and he's still doing this sort of needy energy stealing from this woman, and she says, and she can read his aura, and she says, stop, and she puts her hand up and said, what, why are you attacking me? I'm just trying to be friendly. He said, well, no, you're not. You're trying to energy steal from me because you feel less than. You don't get it. You can't see yourself, and you think you see something mirrored in me, and you want something from me, but I won't let you do that. I won't let you play that energy game with me and steal from me. And then he gets really upset and sad, and then they start, working through in this failed, or this beginning of this relationship, and then she teaches him how to see, but she teaches him in quite a harsh way. But if you see the movie, it'll become clear. So anyway, for what it's worth, that's my take on feeling seen or feeling unseen. So I hope that helps someone. When you experience it, it'll really shock you, and it's kind of the beginning stages also of spiritual enlightenment training, and it's glorious when you get it. Yeah. So bless you all. Hope this helps. Have a lovely day or a lovely evening wherever you are, and take care. Bye for now.